This video might contain flashing lights.
This video contains spoilers for Silent Hill F, Silent Hill 2, and Silent Hill 3. I have played Silent Hill F recently, and have put my thoughts into this video. I really like the early Silent Hill games, and I want to see how they compare to the latest game in the series. I have separated this video into 4 chapters: story, music and art direction, combat, and puzzles. Let us begin. Silent Hill F's story is fantastic and easily one of the most appealing parts of the game. It is well written, focusing on strong characters and a slowly unwinding plot. It is unfortunate that the importance given to writing in big-budget video games has declined in recent years, where the plot is mere vehicle for the gameplay. But unlike some long-winded RPGs where I end up skipping every tedious cutscene, Silent Hill F's narrative had me looking forward to every new story beat. The game was written by 𝙼𝙖𝙖𝙡𝙗, who has also written various visual novels including 𝙎𝙤𝙬 When They Cry, which has been well received, although I have not yet played it. The Silent Hill games have always focused on taboo subjects. Silent Hill 2's focus is on the irreparable guilt one man feels after suffocating his dying wife with her bed pillow. It is a game that explores dark and taboo themes: domestic violence, guilt, regret, duty, selfishness. Part of the discomfort players feel is because of the dual nature of James, which reflects the dual nature in us all. James Sunderland has committed an evil act, but he is not an evil man. He shows a genuine concern for Laura's safety after she runs into Brookhaven Hospital. He talks Angela out of suicide, and when confronted with Eddie's violent tendencies, tries to reason with him, and, after eventually killing him in self-defense, feels genuine emotional conflict. His kindness to the other characters puts a stop to any notion that he is a heartless killer, and makes the shocking discovery of the murder more real, more concrete and impactful. Hinako is also quite a sympathetic protagonist. We see at the start her position as an outcast for her more tomboyish traits, as well as her constant arguments with her father. Not only does she struggle with herself, she also struggles against society. This theme of the individual versus society is a pattern throughout the game. It is made especially potent given Hinako's position as a woman in 1960s Japan. While the game is symbolic, I would hesitate to call it surreal in the way Silent Hill 2 is. Silent Hill F eschews the tilted, unnerving speech of Silent Hill 2 for a more straightforward, sharper dialogue. There are 2 plot lines in the game, each running side by side. There is a primary plot of trying to escape the town, and a secondary plot where Hinako goes through different rituals with a man wearing a white fox mask, who seems to be her prospective husband. These 2 plots intertwine toward the end, and go into some quite obvious symbolism regarding Hinako having to kill off her past self in order to transform into her married self, i.e. the person society wants her to be. The story focuses on how society forces its subjects, particularly women, into certain roles that they may not want to fill, and the endings especially emphasize this. In terms of atmosphere, the game is more akin to the manga of Junji Ito than the films of David Lynch. Silent Hill F is a game that is probably aimed at women, given it explores the psyche of a schoolgirl who has grown up in an abusive and patriarchal household. It shares a thematic thread with Silent Hill 3 in its exploration of the fears of a teenage girl, though I think the games are quite different in how they are explored. In Silent Hill F, Hinako, from the start, knows what is going on and rages against it. She does not want to get married. She does not want to be a wife subservient to her husband like her mother was to her father, yet she is forced into that role. The whole game is her rebelling against it. She fights creatures based on how society sees women and distorted representations of frightening men. The first ending is especially clear. The monster in the fog is Hinako's married self, a Hinako with her personality wiped away. The final boss fight symbolizes her need to assert herself amid the constant pressure to conform. Hinako is a lone raging fire against a society that wants to dim her light, her need for recognition. Now, let's talk about Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 also covers the fears of its female protagonist, though it does it in a more oblique way. The game has Heather Mason stalked, manipulated, and be the pawn of others' agendas. At the start, we know that the cult is interested in her for some reason, but we are not sure why. Later on, we discover she is carrying their god in her womb. The cult is not interested in Heather. Rather, they are interested in what's inside her, what her body can do for them. Alongside the manifold ways different parties try to exert control, mirrors the unfortunate way people can be controlled in our own world. Thematically, one can draw parallels between the games. They both feature teenage protagonists resisting against control, be it from an evil cult or wider society. The main difference between how these fears are explored in Silent Hill F and Silent Hill 3 is how the player experiences them. In Silent Hill 3, the player experiences what Heather goes through alongside her. One of the most memorable parts of the game is when you are in Brookhaven Hospital, and as you explore, you start finding notes addressed to you. These notes are from a patient, we find out, called Stanley Coleman. The contents are obsessive and romantic in nature, and are accompanied by a little doll. If a thing has no meaning, there's no reason for it to exist at all, just as you exist for me. The notes become increasingly threatening as they imply that Stanley still lurks in the hospital alongside Heather. Some notes even disappear after you leave the room. We never see Stanley, but his presence is felt intensely throughout that level. This sense of discomfort is not only felt by Heather, but by the player as well. The way the story of the third game unfolds, how the player alongside Heather doesn't know who to trust, lets the player empathize more with its protagonist. In Silent Hill F, Hinako has her own experience of control and abuse, which the player sees at the beginning of the game and through flashbacks within it. I think it is interesting to see how the two games deviate in how they get the player to empathize with the main character. Silent Hill F is more similar to Silent Hill 2 in that it is a metaphorical exploration of the main character's psyche. In fact, the first ending confirms that in a quite controversial way, when it is revealed that the entire events of the game have been a drug-infused hallucination. I think the story achieves this effect quite well, as we see Hinako grow more battered and worn down as the game progresses. In her marriage to Foxmask, she undergoes various grisly rituals such as sawing off her arm, branding her back, and fusing a mask to her face. These rituals are violent and excessive, probably the most disgusting parts of the game, and yet I think they are intentionally so. Foxmask, Hinako's prospective husband, has been nothing but nice to her until then. He is calm, gentle, and soft-spoken, and despite the doll's warning of "don't trust the Foxmask," the player feels drawn towards him. The brutality of the rituals shows the underlying indignity of an arranged marriage. The branding, the sense of being owned, the stifling of her personality, the wearing of a mask. In fact, there is a focus around the face, be it shown, hidden, taken off in some way. One of the endings is particularly memorable in this regard. It has a beautifully horrific scene of Hinako's face lying on the pavement as she screams out in fear.
No. I'm scared. I'm so scared. Please don't. No, I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to become my mother.
I don't want to be like my mother, she screams out. We see how she resents her mother, how she hates it when she submits to the violent tempers of her husband. This is a large part of why she is so scared to conform, to submit to the expectations of her parents and the culture around her. Marriage is no panacea. It may provide some safety, but you are still ruled by another. It could be said that the game has a bleak view of marriage in general. In fact, some pundits have labelled it anti-marriage propaganda, though I disagree with this assessment. The game at its core is about the self-actualization of its young protagonist, her need to find herself, to define who she is. The negativity is not around marriage itself, but how the culture shapes marriage. The game is against arranged marriage, unequal marriage, when wife submits to husband, marriage out of necessity rather than choice. When Hinako resists marrying, it is because she is forced into it, because she has seen how her mother has been treated and is scared she will be treated the same. In one ending, when Hinako is freer, allowed to choose, she even says she might propose to Foxmask.
To live with such passion, then I might actually propose to Kotoyuki when I'm ready.
I think the story is the strongest part of the game. It captured me, and I was excited for each new cutscene, and it fell in line with how Silent Hill has tended towards more symbolic storytelling that explores the psychology of its characters. It has been noted that you have to play the game 3 to 4 times over in order to get all the endings, which is quite dissatisfying. After beating the game for the first time, you do unlock the Into the Fog difficulty setting, which serves as an interesting challenge, but having to beat the same game again and then once more makes it tedious. If you have to play the game 3 or 4 times to unlock more of the story, then make each playthrough different enough to be compelling. The early Silent Hill games have been universally praised for their atmosphere, which is primarily a product of their excellent art and sound direction. Take Silent Hill 2, for example. You have the lovely melancholic track of the introduction, with its somber guitar riffs, along with the mysterious and haunting melody of the game's bizarre cutscenes. The music that stays with me the most, however, is the perfectly made ambient tracks. For most games, the background music is there to fill a gap. It is there because it is expected to be there. Games will have loud, heroic music during fight scenes, somber or happy music to match the emotions of a cutscene, and for regular gameplay, a generally unobstructive track that fades into the background as the player focuses elsewhere. Rarely is background music remembered, aside from a few notable exceptions. One of those exceptions is Silent Hill 2. Even after I had stopped playing the game, the music stayed in my mind. It is so beautiful I sometimes just listen to it by itself. Let me play some of the tracks over some footage of the game and see how you feel. These ethereal, dreamlike sounds help create the uncanny nature of the game and complement the art direction perfectly. But how does this compare with Silent Hill F? The soundtrack's ambient music is fine. They are usually somber and use a wide variety of oriental instruments to fit the setting. It is serviceable, a competent piece of work, but lacking when compared with the music from the earlier games. The non-ambient music is a bit better, with the sombre choral chant of 𝙎𝙖𝙖𝙬𝙗, but even though it fits the setting well, it does not capture my heart. The music is not terrible, and my indifference to it is purely a matter of personal taste. The visuals, however, are a different story. I enjoy the visual style of Silent Hill F, with its overcast grey town juxtaposed against the vibrant red of guts and flowers. Guts and flowers. Those are the game's main visual motifs. The town becomes overgrown with this strange red fauna, along with a more organic, red, stringy substance. It does a good job of making you feel trapped in an open space, as I was never quite comfortable running across areas infected with the stuff. The ever-present fog is a staple of the Silent Hill series, but the beautiful and gory fauna adds something new and lets Silent Hill F stand out from the rest. It also adds colour to the environment, an unusual but interesting change from the previous games. One of the most appealing aspects of Silent Hill F is how completely immersed it is in Japanese culture. The whole game is dripping in it. The town, the food you pick up across the game, references to Japanese folklore, and especially the second world in which Hinako intermittently explores. The second world, the world where Hinako meets Foxmask, is particularly pretty and notably calmer than Hinako's hometown. There may still be monsters, but the environment feels safer, more secure. In these sections, the game departs from horror, at least in my experience. From a technical standpoint, the graphics are very good. The character models aim for realism and achieve it. I tend to dislike photorealism in video games, given that most big-budget games aim for realism at the expense of more interesting ways of stylization. I don't think that is the case here, though, as the art direction is not ignored. In terms of composition and scene layout, I'd say the early Silent Hill games exert a better control over the camera and use it to a greater effect. Silent Hill F has a more modern third-person perspective, which I do enjoy, as it brings you closer to Hinako and helps you identify more with her, though there are some drawbacks. For example, Silent Hill 2, by electing to use a fixed camera, is able to create unique and interesting compositions, such as the iconic shot at the start of the game when you leave the bathroom for the first time and look out over the lake. It also controls the mood of the scene, changing how far away the player is from James or from what angle we see him. In this way, it is very cinematic. While the camera itself is static during the gameplay sections of Silent Hill F, the cutscenes are shot well, with quite a few interesting shots. Since Silent Hill F is its own original game, I don't mind the change from a fixed to a third-person camera angle. The upcoming Silent Hill Townfall is from a first-person angle, which is an even bigger departure for the series, yet, since these games are spin-offs, I think they should be allowed to experiment. The game uses white dots to signal if something is able to be interacted with. I get why they do this, as they do not want the player to be frustrated, though I think the early Silent Hill games had a better way of dealing with the problem. The fixed camera angle of the early games made it so that when you walked into a room, the camera would draw your attention to certain places by the way the shot was framed. Like when James enters the shower in Brookhaven Hospital, an otherwise uninteresting drain pipe is brought to attention as the camera focuses on it from a high angle. Not only this, but when you enter a room, James or Heather's head sometimes looks down towards the items of importance. Not only does this help guide the player, but it does it in a very naturalistic way. I don't think Silent Hill F is bad for using white dots and other convenient methods of game design, but I just want to bring attention to how the originals handled it in a much more inventive way. A big influence on the art of the early Silent Hill games was the British painter Francis Bacon. Bacon's work has often been labelled horror, and while he was reluctant to embrace the label, it was easy to see why people associated him with it. His paintings are interpretive and obscure. When seeing them for the first time, you don't fully understand what you are looking at, but nevertheless the work leaves an impact, usually an unsettling one. His process was not one of conscious intent. In an interview he says that his work was made by luck and chance. He goes on to add,
"Why is chance more important than conscious intellect? And conscious
Because
intelligence?"
I've made images that intellect would never make.
The instinctive way he paints, paired with his lack of conscious input, somehow makes the work richer, more true. When creating from instinct, from their own unconscious, the artist reveals more and reveals more honestly. Even the artists themselves is not fully certain of the meaning of their work. Is simply titled Free Studies for Figures at the Base of a Crucifixion is an especially powerful painting. We see three figures, perhaps human, perhaps animal, their anatomy strange, grotesque and alien. They are pitiable, oddly human, certainly in anguish. There is a physicality to the figures. Their appearance may be exotic, but they lack an ethereal nature. Their forms are tangible. When Bacon references religion in his work, I see it as irony. His work contradicts the Christian notion that humans are made up of two distinct parts, one being the soul, our better nature, the light and airy intellect, the other being the body, the thing that eats, sleeps and breathes, the thing that is mortal, that gets sick and dies. The physicality of Bacon's paintings reject this duality. The mind and body are one. We are irreparably tied to our physical functions. He reminds us of our own animal nature. When I look at these three figures, I see three beasts in conflict with their own brutish forms, wailing, screaming for something more, something transcendent. What Silent Hill 2 inherits from Bacon is this physicality. The creatures are known for their palpable, grimy, sometimes almost human appearance. They are not ghosts or spirits, they are pure flesh. We see this in Silent Hill 2 when James hides in a closet and sees Pyramid Head raping two of the mannequins. The monsters aren't just based off animals, insects, or shallow depictions of injury and disease. They have a kind of personality to them. They remind us of certain unpleasant aspects of the people we may have met, or of ourselves. They can even be somewhat pitiable, such as when the nurse tries to shake off what is covering her head, or when we see the lying figure struggling while it stands and scuttling away when it is hit. It makes them vulnerable almost. At the same time, the monsters are almost dreamlike in their movements. Their heads flicker in a strange motion and seem almost unreal. I think the early games balance this sense of physicality and dreamlike unreality perfectly. The game feels like an unreal nightmare where the monsters are as trapped and bound up in it as we are. It's interesting to see how Silent Hill F carries on this tradition. The birthing monster is perhaps the most physical monster of the game, its appearance following closely to the design motifs of the original, that is, tortured anatomy and dirty flesh. Thankfully, the other creatures that Hinako encounters are quite unique and have a style of their own. My main criticism of the design is that it is too literal. There is no question as to what it is supposed to represent, just read the journal entry for it. What a vile show of life. I'd rather die than turn into a monster like this. I think that when creating visuals that are supposed to be symbolic, you should be less focused on conveying conscious meaning, as that limits the meanings a symbol can have, and rather focus on one's instincts. Another quite blatant example is the 𝙎𝙤𝙖𝙡𝙬, a creature that attacks by licking the player. Here is the journal entry. The greedy, staring eyes, the greasy palms, the disgusting way it acts all chummy with me. All of it is completely repulsive. What's more, it never even bothers with guys. Typical. The creature shares more similarity with plant life and fauna than anything else, which is strange given he was supposed to represent a predatory, lecherous man. The human-sized dolls Hinako fights, along with the big, tempestuous 𝙼𝙤𝙬𝙪, are some of my favourite designs. The kashimashi, the human-sized dolls, are brilliantly designed, artificial and toy-like yet human and bleeding. They are beautifully rendered and remind me of something Junji Ito would draw. The 𝙼𝙤𝙬𝙪 as well, while not particularly frightening, are quite creative, and captures the boisterous rage of Hinako's father well. I also like how it carries on the visual motif of flowers and organs. What strikes me about these two designs is that they are both quite colourful compared to the dirty brown and grey creatures of the old games. I like that the designers ventured outside the set style of what a Silent Hill monster must look like. There is a risk when making a spin-off game in copying everything that players liked from the original game, while at the same time not adding much of its own, which can turn what was new and exciting about the original games into something old and cliché. This, however, isn't what happened with Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F manages to stand on its own outside of the first 4 games, though perhaps it does this too well, as I have seen some people complain that it may as well not be Silent Hill at all. Another point of note is the size of the 𝙼𝙤𝙬𝙪 compared to Hinako. The creature towers above her. It reminds me of how the closers towered above Heather in Silent Hill 3. It was terrifying. Unfortunately, the ease in which the 𝙼𝙤𝙬𝙪 are able to be killed lessens the effect of vulnerability. It is like fighting an unusually easy Dark Souls boss. I think it would be better if her attacks bounced off his gelatin body, if he was a monster to watch and avoid rather than to fight. Since the monster features as a boss fight towards the end of the game, having it be invulnerable until then would have caused a greater emotional effect when you do finally beat it. In short, I like the environment and creature design of Silent Hill F, though some creatures and some environments lack the unsettling nature one expects from a Silent Hill game.
The combat of Silent Hill F is very satisfying. It is by far the most satisfying combat system when compared with the first 4 Silent Hill games. It is slick, stylish and modern. You have a light attack, a heavy attack, a dodge button and a parry mechanic. The battles are fair, and the fights feel fast and exhilarating. And in that I have my problem. The combat system is too satisfying. It has too much polish. Past Silent Hill games, or even past survival horror games in general, are known for their slow and somewhat clunky combat. Take Silent Hill 2 for example. The tensest fights take place during the game's narrow corridors or small rooms, where the player doesn't have much space to move. The attack animations are slow and leave the player vulnerable, especially if they're against 2 or more enemies. The fights are slower. The enemies fall down after a certain number of hits, but then get back up. Another brilliant example is Pyramid Head, the most threatening and memorable monster in the game. In the first fight you have with him, you are locked in a tiny room and cannot escape. Each hit or shot you land on him is ineffective. He barely flinches, the most evident proof of the attack being the barely audible ding sound from his metal head. There is no way of winning this fight. You just run away from him until he eventually leaves. This is the first boss of the game and leaves the player feeling severely disempowered. Even when you face off against 2 Pyramid Heads at the end, the same feeling is present. Although you can win that fight, your attacks feel as useless. And in the cutscene after the fight, you see they impale themselves on their own weapons, rather than being vanquished by any of your attacks. It makes one thing very clear: they lose on their terms, not yours. Compare this to Silent Hill F. For a schoolgirl, Hinako is remarkably competent when battling the long list of paranormal enemies, and the player feels no fear running ahead to their next opponent. Even weapon durability is quite ineffective at disempowering the player, as, even if your weapon is destroyed and you are left defenseless, Hinako is far quicker than the monsters, and the dodge button makes it easy to evade their blows. The boss fights are quite simple as well. There is no waiting, no sense that what you are fighting is invulnerable. You just run up to them and press the attack button until they die. Silent Hill F, in this regard, is not a survival horror game, but an action horror game. The game may present horrors to us and explore taboo themes, but, at least in the gameplay, Hinako is powerful and has the strength to face them head on. This is not bad in and of itself, but it showcases a clear tonal difference between Silent Hill F and the other games in the genre. Most survival horror games make the player feel weak and look toward battles with a sense of dread, whereas in Silent Hill F, the player looks upon battles with an air of confidence. Part of the appeal of survival horror games is that their protagonists tend to be regular people. They are not highly sophisticated super soldiers, skilled samurai or ruthless military men. They are far more average, more similar to ourselves, and are more relatable to us because of that. This also allows the writing to be better, as it allows the story to give its characters more moral weight. Though of course, some horror stories are more about kills and bloodshed, about the pleasure and spectacle of violence. This type of horror I am not a fan of. Hinako is a schoolgirl and she is more human and sympathetic, yet in combat, her attack animations make her seem like a ruthless, aggressive fighter. There is a disconnect here. Just over halfway into the game, during the B-plot, Hinako gains a monster arm. After this point, it is not even trying to be survival horror anymore, it is simply a fighting game. Hinako's monster arm cannot break like other weapons. It can collect souls, and when it collects enough of them, you can activate a super-powered mode, which makes the arm bigger and lets you do more damage. Any tension or incentive to avoid combat is diminished by this superpower. Hinako has lost all vulnerability and has become what amounts to a shonen protagonist. The puzzles were alright. Sometimes the solutions were a little obscure. For example, in the Scarecrow puzzle, the game gives you a riddle, and you have to take the nail out of the correct Scarecrow. Guess wrong, the Scarecrow comes alive and attacks you. Guess right, and the Scarecrow points to the direction that you must go. Each group of Scarecrows are positioned in a unique way, and to solve the puzzle, you must guess which Scarecrow to pull the nail out of. Some of the clues are fair, but others are quite obscure, which led me to complete the puzzle by brute force, i.e. pulling out nails at random and killing all the scarecrows that came alive. One puzzle I really liked was the one that takes place in the school. The clues were given via origami foxes, a fad that the pupils had started, where you write down your worry, fear, or opinion, and leave the little paper fox somewhere. The clues were given in a natural way, and didn't seem out of place in the environment, and it was also fun as it gave insight into the personalities of the students that wrote them. Following this puzzle was a brilliant one, where you had to decipher the students' locker codes using a method they had used to convert letters to numbers. This was a satisfying puzzle as it got me to think and write down the code on a bit of scrap paper to help me along. A lot of the puzzles were quite simple, with the player having to pull a switch that would open and shut different doors, though there were some frustrating ones where the game simply doesn't give enough information to the player. In one puzzle near the end, Hinako has to place a calendar on the wall, but the hook to hang it on is small and easy to miss. Overall, the puzzles were average, with some that were really well done, like the one set in the school, and others which were confusing and unfair. I enjoyed playing Silent Hill F. Its story was far more interesting than most big-budget games made today, and the gameplay was fun, albeit the combat was at odds with its desire to be a horror game. I do not think Silent Hill F relates to the original Silent Hill games in any meaningful capacity, except for the presence of fog and symbolic monsters, though I prefer them taking new directions with the series, since retreading old ground is a sure way to make the series stale and uninteresting. Silent Hill F stands apart from the early games. I'd even venture to say that there are not many similarities between them at all, yet I respect it on its own merit.